the ombudsman offices of the OIS countries that participate. Also, we have at the time members of the different parliaments that they send judges and prosecutors. It was a very interesting workshop with different backgrounds of members, and they brought all of this at that time, because it was 2007. Uh, Try to illustrate them the what were the cores and the aims of the ICC, and also of the Rome Statute. So it was like more uh, of like shaping them what they need to do, and to understand that the Rome Statute is how we will see, it's not an element, it's more like mm, I don't have right now the word to say that they need to understand that this a court of last resort, and the work that we need to do of the aim of the spirit, as we can say, if the law has a spirit, is that we need to, in each country all around the globe, especially in this workshop, the countries that they represent, that they need to understand that if there is a crime, an international crime within their own soil, they need to trial these international criminals with the international standards. So the idea of the international criminal law is it's more of national law rather than international law. It's a little bit there's a between the international criminal law and the private international law, that it has more of national law with international standards of human rights rather than international law. That's because we need, at that time, we need to change the mind of many of these of these prosecutors, judges, legal practitioners. Hence, you need to understand that in this part of the world, since the beginning of the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, uh, there was knowledge that the state was the one the state was the one that made these atrocities against their own population. But we need to change the chip to understand that the Rome Statute, and with the International Criminal Court, they prosecute and trial uh, normal no states, but human beings who committed international crimes. That was the aim. They need to change that. So we finish uh, we came with these outcomes after doing this project. We came with the outcome that the project contributed in enhancing the drafting, the accountability of government agents from the DN regions and the OIS member states by drafting a document with proposals regarding the content of the model draft bill on the cooperation with the ICC. What my predecessor, Professor Minto, has explained. In addition, the Andean Commission of Jurists elaborated a working document with general guidelines regarding the implementation of the Rome Statute in the Andean region, according with each criminal code. If this code doesn't have for example, like the Peruvian Criminal Procedural Code of 2004, a cooperation, international cooperation is the title, and it's all the cooperation between Peru and the ICC. They need to implement that. At that moment, we gave the model of Peru, we gave the model of Colombia, and we gave the model of Chile. The content of these documents have been put. The content of these documents were put to discussion on technical meetings when I explained the Western Ecuador and Colombia, and that time it was passed and discussed in OIS meeting. Also, besides this project that I participate 13 years ago also contribute to increase the awareness of the ICC and the international criminal law. Through this, you need to know that there were here prosecutors, judges, and at the same time members of each congressman and congresswoman um, that participated. 50 members of this. There were in total 50 members from the parliaments of each country, and 60 members from different of the armed forces of the OIS state members in total. So approximately the course between the participants was directly these workshops approximately participate 300 people, and this was a very notable goal that was achieved at that time. So what we pass the information during these seminars was to establish what Professor Minto has explained here in this part of the world in Latin America, is they need to understand how their governments have their relation with the ICC and how they need to improve it. Not only, as Professor Milton says, in participation of the maintenance of the court, in the way they have to, the states have to each year have to transfer some amount of money related to, that's another, there are more countries because there are more wealthy countries, they contribute more than other countries because it needs to be according to the accountability of each country and their budget. However, the most important thing is that they need to understand the compromise of uh, during if there is, for example, a civil war, a terrorist group in this country, they need to prosecute each of these individuals. It doesn't matter if part of the government of the terrorist group or or even this civil war. They need to be tried under international standards. These international standards are part of the Rome Statute, but if you see, for example, in the chapter that I have in the countries I have mentioned, they say the Rome Statutes part of the Rome Statute standards are part of their own legislation, and if there is an international crime, they will use the Rome Statute as an international um, uh, as part of for doing the proceedings. Finally, uh, also it was very what was that year of 2007 and 2008 when we made this project. This was very important in us because in that year, it was between July and August, former President Fujimori was extradited from Chile uh, because he returned to Japan, and here he was tried for a joint criminal enterprise for killings, and there were two important cases here, and they ended in the international in the Inter-American Human Rights Court in Costa Rica. They were linked to Barrios Altos and La Quintuta. There were extra judicial killings of we don't know if the persons that were killed were terrorists or not, but they were killed by these paramilitary groups, and they have the vow of the president, and he was tried, and he's now he was sentenced because he was tried with the law of those days, so he's doing time 25 years. But then the law changed here in Peru, so they give the maximum that is 35 years. So he's doing time. It was an excellent precedent because I follow up this case, and it was very good with international standards. It was very at that moment for students, law students, it was very interesting because the prosecutor and the criminal defense attorney of this former president, they were using international international jurisprudence. Since Nuremberg, at that time, the cases that the ICC have in hand. So it was amazing, you know, because listening to the debate between the parties using international at that time in national TV, it was very useful. Also, I need to mention that also that year it was the final sentence to one of the worst criminals that this country, Peru, ever had ever have in his history. That was Abimael Guzman. He was the head of the worst terrible terrorist group named the Shining Path. And I will try to share with you. I guess that there is a translation in English of the final motion, that the final sentence, and you will see there in that sentence how the judges that try him build up the joint criminal enterprise of this organization. And it's very, I mean, it's very scholar. I mean, it's very how the sequence, the chain of command is very explained, and it's very useful. And that final sentence, that jurisprudence was used in the case of Fujimori, because it was before his final trial. So here, what happened in Peru those years, it was before the international community, it was a turn of 180 degrees, because before that they always they do these pardons and these amnesties to both sides. So people here, the civil community was a very, you know, harsh against the state, because they didn't see that justice was prevailing. But after that, and after all this work, uh, this resilient work, pushing the car forward, finally, in this what is related to international crimes, it was a new benchmark that was created in this country. This country has another benchmark than that is that we can discuss it, that is related to corruption. That's another story. But what is related to human rights, here we made a very good work. So and the prosecutor judges, and they have a lot of workshops related on that, and preparation and study, so they can change the manner how to see this work. Summing up, what I must add here is that if we want to have now we are in a very now we are in a status quo of the Rome Statute and the ICC. We are having elections next year, probably in February, if everything goes well, for new judges, and also for the new head of the prosecutor office of the ICC. At the same time, we have this action from the U.S. Uh, under this administration that probably will finish this November, related to Trump, against this hard attitude against the ICC. So what I can say is that organization like the ICR Justice Africa, me as a part as a director of international programs, um, we need to make more workshops. We need to train more. We need to give more information about how this works, what the role of the states parties with the International Criminal Court and the Rome Statute. We need, for example, in Africa, we can make a workshop now that we have this technology. We can make workshops related the relationships from 2020 and these 10 years from now on, the relation with the International Criminal Court, how Africa could each country to do. For example, we need to revise how we have been working our national laws to combat human rights, doing, for example, that's an example. Then Asia, and then Europe, how it's doing with now with if the European Court of Human Rights in some cases are making some jurisprudence that also can guide the ICC or vice versa. So I guess that every 10 years or every 15 years there is a need that we scholars need to study what have happened in the international criminal law arena related to each country or as more like a continent uh, in the relation with the ICC, because what we are seeing here some flows with the relation of the International Criminal Court and the Rome Statute and the international community. So we need to strong that, and the way to make stronger is to have two ways of communication. To see what the states are doing, the relationship has to be much closer, and to have all of this kind of discussion. So that's my. I'm finished with my presentation. Hope that you have liked it, and I give the floor to Professor Shipati that has joined us. So if he wants to add something to what we are discussing around here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I think he's having some trouble with the audio.
Oh. Professor Sripathi, you can hear us now?
Professor,
unmute.
I think you need to
unmute
your system.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Okay. Outside, and
you can
the
hear you,
power
but
is
it's showing you're still muted on the
so
screen.
I do not have internet.
Yes, I think it's his connection.
Oh yeah.
I'm actually on my mobile because I do not a net connection because of the power cut. So I've joined through my mobile.
Okay.
So proceed. All right, can you proceed, Professor Dr. Sripathi? We welcome you. Convey to the panelists the reason for your delay as a state of medical emergency. Would you like to present something? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you, but can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you now.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Professor.
Hello.
Hello,
yes,
Professor.
Prof.
Okay, fine.
Sound and clear.
If you're having some challenges, maybe we would ask Councillor Mapane to step in briefly as you sort out the technical issue. Can we give you a bit of 5 to 10 minutes to sort out the hitch?
Okay, let Brian speak,
Okay.
and then I'll.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Dr.
Professor.
Marota, who has just completed, thank you so much for that elaborate explanation. Dr. Marota is also Director of International Programs. And on that note, I also wish to welcome Professor Dr. Sripathi as another new Director of International Programs with us at the ICR Justice. Okay, Mr. Ramapane, I believe you have something to present to the panel and the viewers. The floor is yours.
Thank you very, very much, esteemed professors of law. I just have a question for Prof. Milton, because earlier on he was talking about the squabble between the International Criminal Court and the member states. So I wanted him to elaborate more on it so that we can engage on it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ramapane. I think in my presentation, I was trying to highlight issues of contention that have existed between the ASP and the ICC in terms of administrative functions. And I indicated, apart from my own observation, there's a report which is very instructive. There's a report that was issued last month reviewing the operations of the ICC. And I've seen they've also dwelled so much on the friction between the operation of the ICC and the Assembly of States. Actually, the key issue here is about Assembly of State parties trying to micromanage the ICC, if I may put it that way. So it will try to micromanage, it will try to dictate certain things to be carried out by the ICC. And the ICC, on the other hand, says, well, we are an independent statutory body created by the Rome Statute, and we do not need to take any instructions from any other entity. And that is very clear from the Rome Statute itself. And so you find the ICC's concern and query is that the ASP are deliberately trying to deny it the budget that it tries to present. Each time it tries to present a budget, it may not be able to secure sufficient funds to enable it to proceed with efficiency and effectiveness as would be expected. On the other hand, the Assembly of State parties argue that really it appears that the functioning of the court does not match the sacrifice the states are making towards the contribution from their taxpayers. So, and they feel that they have to exercise their oversight mechanism. You remember, it is a function which is within the statute itself. When we look at Article 112, it entrusts the ASP with the power to exercise oversight over the function of the ICC. And this oversight is what is viewed as a micromanaging. That has been the major source of contention. So the other confusing, unprecedented, something that is not presented, there's no precedent anywhere, is where you find the secretariat of the ASP is actually located right within the ICC itself. And they don't answer to anybody at the ICC. They don't answer to the president of the ICC. They don't answer to the registrar. They answer directly to the president of the bureau of the ASP. So there are those minor conflicts. And when they're in there, they tend to be influenced by, there's a fear that they're being influenced by the operations and the other organs within the ICC. So essentially, as I indicated, we need to find a way. There'll be recommendations that the way forward would be more dialogue between the two institutions. Really, ideally, the ASP is supposed to exercise its oversight function, but at the same time, the ICC as a judicial body needs to maintain and perpetuate its independence if it is to carry out its function efficiently and with economy as the ASP would want. But also the ICC feels that unjustified denial of its funding, of the funding of its budget, is totally unjustified, just as I've said. And so this friction keeps going up and down. And the only way forward would be more dialogue and clarity between the roles of the party. And the ASP should not be seen to be micromanaging the ICC, which is an independent judicial institution. Basically, those are the key areas of the tussle, Mr. Ramapane. Over to you again. Or if you feel, yeah, is there anything you want to add on?
Yeah, thank you very much. Perhaps one of the most contentious issue will be how do we strike a balance between the ASP executing its mandate of oversight vis-a-vis the mandate of the court.
Yeah, absolutely. You've actually summarized the whole area of contention. There has to be a balance between the judicial role of the ICC, which needs to remain independent and not influenced by any other extra or outside organs. And at the same time, you see the ASP has a statutory responsibility of oversight. perhaps there's overstepping of oversight, which now they tend to call micromanaging. The ASP might, the ICC feels, oh, the ASP is now managing us, micromanaging us. And this we can't allow because we are an independent judicial body. I think you have really pointed out the exact thing. There has to be some balance sought, and that is where we recommend dialogue. There has to be more dialogue and communication and streamlining on the refining the functions in light of what is there in the statute. To what extent the ASP should step in the functions of the ICC. Thank you very much. If you have nothing else to add on, I think we'll now welcome, that was a very brilliant question, by the way. Thank you a great deal. Let's hear from Professor Dr. Dwarakanath. Are you there? Let me hand you back to Dr. Marotta to usher in.
I'm very much.
We can hear you, but
Can
we
you all
can't
hear
hear
me?
Right?
I think he's having some trouble with his connection.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
he is there.
We lost him. Now we're having him again.
No, he appears.
Professor Dwarakanath, are you with us?
Yeah.
All right. If you are
Yes, I'm very much here.
are you able to make a presentation? You are able to make a presentation?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Like a comparative analysis of the ASP and Rome Statute and generally under the United Nations Charter. Because both happen to be the legislative bodies of the respective organizations. And now speaking of the ASP under the Rome Statute, the most important article is the Article 112 of the Rome Statute. Clearly lays down that the Assembly of States Parties meets at the seat of the court in Hague or at the United Nations headquarters in New York once a year. And if the circumstances so demand, it may hold special sessions also. Now, each state party has one representative in the assembly and who may be accompanied by alternatives or advisors. And the Rome Statute further provides that each state party has only one vote, although every effort shall be made to reach decisions by consensus, but where if a decision cannot be taken by consensus, then a voting procedure is held. And states which are not parties to the Rome Statute may also take part in the proceedings of the ASP, and they participate as observers, and they do not have the right to vote. The president of the court, the prosecutor, and the registrar, or the representatives also can take part whenever appropriate in the proceedings of the ASP. Now, when we compare this part with the United Nations General Assembly, the UN also, like the ASP, is a legislative body, but however, there is a difference in the sense, in the case of ASP, each state sends only one representative, whereas in the case of the General Assembly of the UN, each state sends 5 representatives. But however, the states, a state under ASP or a state under General Assembly is entitled to only one vote, a single vote. And like the ASP, there has to be a consensus, and most of the decisions are taken by consensus. Only where a decision is not taken, then voting procedure, and then yes. But under General Assembly, it is mostly decisions taken by a voting procedure. That is, 2/3 majority of the members present and voting shall take a decision, and of course with the positive recommendations of the Security Council, which is missing as far as concerned. ASP is that can make decision on its own. It's not like the General Assembly depending on the Security Council under the UN. Now, in accordance with Article 112 of the Rome Statute, the Assembly has certain functions. I've heard some of the points that were well spoken by Dr. Milton. That is the functions of the ASP, which provides the management oversight to the presidency. And not only the presidency, but also to the prosecutor and the registrar regarding the administration of the court. In addition, the Assembly adopts the rules of procedure and the evidence and the elements of crime. So these are some of the important things that are performed by ASP. And the question that was posed by Brian is whether the Assembly's function overlap with that of the court or the president of the court or the prosecutor. Now, while the Assembly provides judgment over the president, the prosecutor, when we say management oversight, it is only the administrative part that is taken care of by the ASP. The official of the ICC, which is vested with the trial court, and that is the prosecutor. They are engaged solely with the judicial functions of the court. So as far as the judicial part is concerned, there shall not be any kind of overlap. In the sense, is not going to interfere with the judicial functions of the trial courts and the prosecutor. Because when the Rome Statute was being negotiated, the provisions, the states have taken a clear stand that there shall not be any kind of overlapping. So that is why the prosecutor's office is independent of the Assembly of State Parties, because the Assembly of State Parties only provides a management oversight as to how the prosecutor's office and then the courts, the trial courts, are performing their functions. And apart from that, the Assembly of State Parties is composed of representatives of the states that have ratified and acceded to the Rome Statute. That is very important. And each state party is represented by a state representative, which I already mentioned. And these reps are proposed to the credential committee by the head of the state or government or the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the state. So each representative of the state is nominated from either by the head of the government or the minister holding the post of the Foreign Office or the post of the External Affairs. They propose each representative to the Assembly of State Parties. Now, the Assembly of States also has a bureau, which consists of a president, 2 vice presidents, and 18 members elected by the Assembly for a 3-year term, taking into consideration principles of equitable geographic distribution and adequate representation of the principal legal systems of the world. This is very important because it is similar to the constitution of the International Court of Justice, because the 15 judges who function under the International Court of
Justice are also elected by the Assembly and Security Council together. And these judges come from all the 5 continents of the world, so that the International Court of Justice has a universal character because the judges come from all the principal legal systems. So principle is adopted by the Assembly of State Parties, where the was elected by Assembly for a 3-year term, also come from the adequate the principal legal systems in the world. Now, in 2003, the ASP decided to establish the Permanent Secretariat, whose functions may be similar to the Secretariat of the United Nations Organization. Now, the ASP decides on various items, such as the adoption of normative texts of the budget, normative texts and also the budget of the annual budget of the court, the election of the judges and of the prosecutor and the deputy prosecutor. So in this regard, the functions of the ASP is similar to the functions of the General Assembly, because the General Assembly also involves itself in the election of the 15 judges of the International Court of Justice. So here the Assembly of State Parties also elect the judges of the court, ICC, as well as the prosecutor and the deputy prosecutors of the ICC. And in the last part, Professor Milton had mentioned the Bureau of the Assembly. The ASP has a bureau consisting of a president, vice president, and 18 members elected by the Assembly for a 3-year term, which I already mentioned. Now, coming to the functions of the Assembly has a lot of issues to take care of, and that includes the budget of the court, the status of contributions and the audit reports, as well as a number of current issues, such as the permanent premises of the court. And in addition to that, the Assembly considers the report and the activities of the Bureau, the court, and the Board of Directors of the Trust Fund for Victims. Now, I had mentioned this Board of Directors of the Trust Fund Victims and the International Discourse on ICC and Victims. So, apart from all this, the Assembly is also further entrusted with the election of the judges, the prosecutor, and the deputy prosecutor. Now, the judges, the prosecutor, and the deputy prosecutors, before taking up their respective responsibilities under the court, these elected officials make a solemn undertaking administered by the president or vice president of the Assembly, and to exercise their respective functions impartially and independently. The Assembly may also decide by secret ballot on the removal from office of a judge, a prosecutor, or deputy prosecutor. So here, a removal of a judge, the prosecutor, or the deputy prosecutor is something that cannot be done in a very open manner. So the ASP provides for the secret ballot, and in fact it holds the secret ballot in order to eliminate any judge of the court or the prosecutor or the deputy prosecutor. So these are some of the functions that are performed by the ASP, and most of the issues that has to be discussed as far as the ASP is concerned has been clearly explained and laid down by Professor Milton. So I've only added a little to what has already been said by Professor Milton. And I thank the host, Professor Milton, and the co-host, Dr. Marotta, for giving me this opportunity of making my brief presentation as far as the ASP is concerned. And I have been a little handicapped because of the power cut, and I'm actually I'm connected through my mobile phone, and you know, when one gets used to a big screen and then getting used to the small little screen becomes difficult. But nevertheless, I joined late and I wanted to be a part of this webinar. So that is why I made all efforts. And here I am. Challenge. And thank you once again, Professor Milton and Dr. Marotta. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Dr. Sripathy. I'm very glad that you have expounded on the functions of the ASP. So just one point which I need to put across. There is Article 112, paragraph 7. There are other functions which you may not see appearing right within this context because they're enveloped under that particular provision. Paragraph 7 provides for any other function. It states that the ASP may carry out perform any other function consistent with the Rome Statute. That gives it, a broader leeway in performing any other function, but such function should be in consonance with the spirit and the tenor of the Rome Statute. So thank you very much, Prof. That was very erudite. And thank you very much to Mr. Brian for that very brilliant question. And thank you, Dr. Marotta, for that wonderful discourse you brought in, as usual, with very illustrative, vivid references. I believe our viewers are having a good time watching. And I suppose we are almost coming to the end of this provision. We have only 1 more minute, and unless one of the panelists has something to say. If there's nothing, then I think we should be able to wind up the proceedings. Dr. Marotta, you okay?
Yes, everything is in good standing. Also, some technical problems that Professor Sripathy have today, but sometimes it happens. So he excelled with how to manage it. And
he really tried.
A very good presentation. Yes.
He's having another PhD hidden in engineering.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, panelists, my fellow professors, and Mr. Ramapani. That was very brilliant. I'm very, very sure our viewers have had a great time. And as usual, we have extinguished every doubt as to whether there's nothing that is left. We make sure that we have expounded virtually everything that should be able to be brought out for the interest of the viewers and the panelists in respect of the ASP. I believe we have captured all the salient points. Any points that are left, Professor Dorakanath has exhaustively dealt with them in a very erudite fashion. So we thank you for your time. We thank you, all the professors, and we thank you, the listeners world over. And it's at this point that we say bye-bye until we see you again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Have a nice weekend. Bye.